Oh, good Sunday morning to you, everybody. I am still live, still hopefully live, right? Checking everything out on YouTube real quick just to make sure. Internet connection is it is what it is when you're not in your homestead, which is to say that not every place around the world is set up for streaming, and as a result of that, we'll just have to see. Hopefully, the quality isn't too bad. I'm only speaking slowly and going slower because I'm trying to load YouTube at the same time that I'm trying to talk to you guys. So I'm not really sure how long that loading time is going to be, but I'm assuming that things are coming across pretty choppy, if I had to bet. All right, so we are in the first week of October. Today's October 1st. Happy October to everybody. And ton of news going on this week. The past 2 weeks, really. I covered some stuff last week, but there really is more. I'm looking down at my notes here because I'm having to try to keep track of everything while I'm also moving around on vacation, and neither of which is necessarily all that easy. Um, yeah, I still haven't even been able to load YouTube, so I'm assuming that the stream's quality is it's gonna be lesser than normal. I have to check off my phone here. That the stream's quality is surprisingly good. Okay, well, that being the case, let's just jump right into it. I'm gonna try to do the normal hour today. I might rush it a little bit. Whether or not you guys know, I'm on vacation. I'm in Greece. I'm here with my wife. We're on our 10-year anniversary, and part and parcel with that comes spending time with my family, and family that I haven't seen. In some cases I haven't seen in 12 years. In other cases I haven't seen in nearly 15 years. And in most cases I haven't seen in 8 years. So it's very much a reunion of sorts, and we are spending a lot of time with each other now that we are in our final days. So there's more of that to come for us here. However, I did want to make sure that I got the updates for the latest on AI to you all. So, starting with that, like I said, I got just pages and pages and pages of AI notes that I'm going to have to go through real quick. So, first and foremost, GPT-4 browsing is back. If you had been using GPT-4 prior and you liked having browsing mode, essentially what browsing mode is going to do is it enables you to be able to have the sites and for all the resources that get used for whatever the answer is that you get derived. So in other words, you go to look something up and you're using browser mode along with it, you'll have cited resources for the facts that GPT uses in order to put together your response. That's awesome. It's also awesome in the sense that you can, use up-to-date information if you wanted to pull up-to-date information. Again, a lot of viewers, a lot of people who know already, you could use plugins to accomplish that stuff. So having browsing mode back, oddly enough, isn't really an announcement for me. It's only an announcement for people that weren't using browsing already as part of plugins. So it's an announcement. It's not really the biggest thing that's come out. At any rate, um, still on top of web browsing, nothing else has changed. So you still have data analysis. You still have plugins to be able to use there. Let's see. Oh yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed. I've only seen it a couple times so far, so it's not like a set standard thing just yet. But I'm really sure, especially with data analyzer, you can do this. You're now able to use images as input for GPT. So if you wanted to, you could use any sort of image. I think the example that's online right now is like an image of a bicycle, and then you can ask details about the image that you've given GPT, and you can ask it to go into further depth on the image that you're looking at. As an example, I don't want to say example just yet because I want to see if I can actually open chat first. I can. Oh, this is going to be some cool stuff maybe today. Of course, I have to test it. But while I'm doing that, I also wanted to note that GPT, I think I already told you guys that last time that OpenAI is folding in DALL-E 3 into GPT. So that's going to become a part of the platform. And that, I believe, is happening early this month. I don't know if it's already dropped or if that's something that is coming soon. But it's certainly something that they are looking to drop as soon as they can in order to sort of amp up what's going on the OpenAI side. Um, there's going to be visual, and then there's also going to be audio. So you can have the ability to just converse with GPT as well, be able to talk to it in the same way. If you've downloaded Pi, I've talked about that a couple times as a personal AI assistant, then you're going to really like where things are going to go with GPT, because it's obviously going to be sort of, I wouldn't say like a more steroidal version of Pi. It's definitely going to be more powerful. So it'll be a more powerful assistant that you can talk to. I don't think that they're engineered in the same way. So I don't think that you would be talking to your GPT assistant the same way that you would talk to your Pi assistant. I would be talking to my Pi assistant for advice and for a secondary opinion on things. I would be talking to my GPT assistant about like technical issues, solutions to problems, things of that nature. Again, just because they can do the same thing doesn't mean that you should use them to do the same thing. They're not the same tools. So don't keep trying to make the wrong screwdriver fit into the right place. Outside of that, I want to say that what is the other aspect that OpenAI is working on? It's definitely coming down the road later. Oh well, except for the fact that it's not so much OpenAI, but when Microsoft, who funds them, did a not a press release. They had an event, not necessarily. It was like a conference or something like that. But anyway, they announced that Windows 11 is going to essentially hold every generative AI tool that they can possibly imagine. Essentially, so Copilot's going to have all of that for you. Already built in. I just posted about that not too long ago. That Copilot's what is involved, what comes along with Copilot, what are the tools that are involved there, how those get used, and what the new AI tools look like within Copilot. Well, now all of that is going to be just a standard part of Windows 11. So you're going to be able to do all the same type of cross-document referencing. So if you're keeping up, Google put Bard into just about everything that it could last week. YouTube, I'm going to get into that. That's actually the next thing on the list. Bard has now a ton of cross extension features, giving it access to all of your Google workspaces, and allows Bard to cross-reference data for you, similar to the functionality that exists currently with another AI software that is very sort of under the rug, not being talked about too much, known as Virtual Brain. Virtual Brain is essentially a online AI repository for your documentation that will allow you to cross-reference the information from that documentation. So in other words, you can have PDFs, Word docs, spreadsheets, reports, memos, emails, whatever, all thrown into one gigantic pile in a virtual space. And then you could query that storage space for information cross-referenced against the data in there. You could say, like, I wish I could give you a really good example, but it would be like having all of your information in one space and then being able to say something like, hey, last year I put together this really killer recipe that I just don't remember, but it's somewhere on my drive. Can you find it and give me the recipe? Right? Like, even things like that are much easier for us to query than it is for us to remember what the file name was, to remember what drive we stored it on, to remember when it was, be able to go back and look, instead of continuously cataloging the information that we do. Naming convention is like something that's etched into my head. Now it's actually going to become more a conversation in terms of how things are stored, I suppose, as opposed to being categorized and bucketed. Sort of makes sense now that we don't have to do that, which is a good thing. It's an advancement, so far as I can tell. Very much like moving on to 2FA as opposed to using passcodes constantly, which 2FA isn't necessarily beyond passcode. Biometric 2FA definitely starts to make passcode look really weak, but we're getting there. We're getting there piece by piece. So at any rate, Bard decided, Google decided to sort of throw Bard into everything. And so now Windows is basically doing the same thing. All the same functionality that you would normally have with GPT is going to exist across multiple different tool sets in Windows. And as a result of that, essentially, your whole PC becomes a virtual brain. So now you'll be able to cross-reference all the data and information on your PC through Windows, through a generative AI tool. You'll be able to just go and query. I mean, yeah, look, of course, you could always search for your data before. Am I saying anything that's necessarily new? No, you could always search for data before. It's not an option that never existed that, oh, we can't do that, so now that's totally new. I'm not saying that, but what I am saying is your ability to look at multiple files on your machine at the same time and pull data from them in order to cohesively put it together, that wasn't a thing. That's something you have to know where all of those things are. Then you have to sit there and actually take a look at that process and manually put it all together and connect all the dots yourself, and then there's the output. Well, now you're not going to have to do that anymore. You're not necessarily going to have to remember as much either. You're just going to have to ask. So now your computer really does become a memory bank. It's no longer a file room. What's the difference between the two? A file room is something that I look at that, again, I have to know the placement of every single file in that file room. I have to know the code that's being used in order to store those files, right? I have to know the naming conventions so that I know how to look them up later, and I know where they're stored, how they're sorted, and all that kind of thing, in what order, whatever. And now I don't have to do any of that. Sure, I can. Will it make it easier? I don't know. I'm not entirely sure. The way I kind of look at it now is that I have this infinite box that I can throw data into, and then this assistant who is more than willing and capable to, within nanoseconds, separate out, organize, and differentiate all that data for me. So why would I then go spend whatever length of time that I would in terms of the organization of that data, right? I'm starting to look at this stuff on a qubit level where it's 0 and 1 at the same time. It's organized and it's unorganized altogether. It's just data. It's just ones and zeros floating around, or various states of 1, 0. However you want to look at that. So I think that that's a pretty interesting development. Just the fact that, like, I'm not saying never name a file again. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that it's really interesting that where you once had to do a lot of manual investigation, now it's really nice, really nice. Cortana was a really good idea. Now that's seriously overpowered, that you're going to be able to just query your computer in a very natural way and not have to sit there. I mean, I don't know. I can't tell you how much I loathe the search bar function in Windows, and the fact that you sit there and you're just watching a loading bar go forever, and hopefully your files start showing up that you were loading because you were looking for them, and maybe they'll show up by the time this gets to the end. Could do that, or we could take a step into this new generation where you just query to see, like, is this information there? Does it even exist? And then you get a verbal yes, no answer, like whether the information's there or not. And it's faster than sitting there watching a loading bar go, right? It's just doing its own job and then letting you know what the after effects of it are. Moving on from that, Windows 11 going to be decked out. Oh, wow, yeah. So the plans for this, the rollout for this, is supposed to be on the 26th. Supposed to have already launched on the 26th of September. So some of these features should already be available on Windows 11. I'm not entirely sure which, because I actually don't have Windows 11 yet. That is my next task. I'm extremely reluctant. Has nothing to do with AI. I'm just very reluctant to update operating systems. I don't necessarily couldn't really explain it. It's just that nuanced thing, having to learn placement of new buttons and that kind of stuff. With the type of work that we do, you're in and out every day, and you really don't want to have to learn a whole new system and then keep going, right? So one weekend, I'll get a new cube and I'll put Windows 11 on it, and I'll spend time and make the switch over. At any rate, DALL-E 3 now incorporated into Bing. So if you're wondering, I know a lot of people asked me last week, hey, how do I get a good start on generative art? How do I get a good start with generative art programs and text to art programs? This Bing's your way now. You can at least you can generate something like 50 or so, like 50 to 60 different images with DALL-E on Bing. I don't want to. I don't know what the. I think it's 50 to 60 just at a normal generation speed, and I think after that it's a slower generation speed, but you can still keep going. So essentially, it's free to generate art off of Bing. Just again, is only speed dependent. They kind of hook you in the sense that when you first start doing it, it's with tokens applied, so you get the fastest generation speed or something like that. You get the median generation speed, which is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. I think the generation speed on it with tokens is like 5 to 6 seconds, which is very nice. Maybe 8 or 9 seconds, but still under 10 seconds is very nice. It's not bad. So I imagine without the tokens though, and at normal speed, which is same with Midjourney, right? Like I using Midjourney, I was using turbo mode for a little bit, and then I had to pull back from it because it spoils you how quickly you can generate images when other people like you just turn them out like that when normally it would take you a couple seconds. That's like saying a couple seconds is a long amount of time, which apparently it is going to be pretty soon. I'm slowly but surely coping with the fact that time is warping very quickly. At any rate, DALL-E 3, new tool, over on Bing, go use it, get into image generation, start playing around with it, get used to it, get used to how to describe things. Realize that that game is changing too. So, and I'm going to keep plowing through because I have so much news that I want to get through, and I hope that I can crush it out in an hour. I usually don't, but I'm gonna do my best. I'm not even gonna do the GPT demos today. I didn't have anything lined up, but there's always something that I could show you guys that's very cool that I've been playing around with in the background. It's just that for once, I actually don't have the time. Nevertheless, I will do my best. So, Microsoft also talking about DALL-E 3 being a part of Bing. It's great. Text to image, really great way to get into it. One of the coolest things that I saw from that was their demo on the Surface. Okay, this is taking a sidestep from AI, but it's doing it for a very good reason in my heart of hearts. It is that the Surface from Microsoft now, what they've done is they have incorporated NVIDIA GPU processors, and that is what's allowing them to do some crazy fast computational stuff. Because if you guys know anything about these processors, they are the processors that make LLMs run. They are the processors that make GPT run. They're the processors that make Llama 2 run. If you don't have these GPU processors, which this isn't the only method of doing this, I got to tell you, Facebook is steadily, programmatically working its way around the GPU problem. We'll get to that soon. So Microsoft is using these GPUs in its Surface hardware, and as a result of that, their new Surface it's hard for me to even get this out. Their new Surface tablets outperform Apple's M2 MacBook when it comes to video rendering. Now, I don't know how many of you guys understand how significant that is. Video rendering has been the bread and butter of Mac almost since its inception. It is like the thing that people buy Macs for. If anything else, yeah, graphic design is part of it, but you can put Adobe on Windows. It's not the end of the world. The processing, though, for audio and video processing, Mac has always been superior. Always. Even when they were using Intel chips, didn't matter. The way that they had threaded things, I don't know all the technicalities of it. It was just better. It was better every single time. Okay, benchmark tests, always better. All of a sudden, and mind you, I played with the M1 Pro Max, loved it. I think it floored me when I first started using it. How fast it was, how efficient it was, how amazing it was with rendering, and how amazing it was at processing. It's crazy good, crazy good. To know that now there is a Windows product out there that literally halved the time. It took the render time from an M2 Pro MacBook and cut it in half on a Surface tablet. That's disgusting. That's how much of a huge leap we've made. The M2 Pro just came out. It just came out. It just launched this year. And already that new hardware, the chip has been in development for like the last 5, 6 years. That new hardware is already gone. It's already gone, done. Who cares? Moving on. So I'm trying to pick myself up from that. So Bard's now in a bunch of stuff. Microsoft's got its game in play. What's new with Bard? What's new with all of the features where they incorporated AI into various Google tools and aspects? YouTube now has a new feature called Dream Screen. And essentially, Dream Screen lets you use Gen 2 quality, which if you know about Runway and you know about Gen 1 and Gen 2 and you know about the Dolly project and just about like text to video altogether and that kind of stuff, generative video. That's where Gen 1 and Gen 2 come from. Generative 1 version of generative video and Gen 2 version of it. Gen 2 is now the main engine being used by Runway. They are also the ones that developed Gen 1. And or at least developed it for their platform rather. And so now Dolly is able to use, Dolly is able to lift that same technology. Outside of that, YouTube is lifting that same technology, and they're using it for background video generation. So now if you have video and you didn't really have background video for it, maybe you just have voiceover, or maybe you just have captions, something, I don't know, maybe you needed a background video intro or outro or something like that. Well, now you don't have to bother going and buying any sort of canned intros and outros. You can just text to video your own stuff, generate your own video. I think the clips that I've seen were like somewhere between 15 and 30 seconds long. It's not like it needs to be that long anyway. We all know I think the mean length of time for videos is something like around 3 minutes or somewhere like that. So it's not really that big a deal that it's such a short amount of generation time. Seems pretty standard to me, and I think it's going to be very cool. I think content creation is about to really, really, really go through the roof. Again, I don't want to jump the gun. I want to try to cover everything before I get into my overall opinions about stuff, but just putting that out there. So there's Dream Screen, and then YouTube has also updated its YouTube Studio, so that you can do very much the same thing that a lot of other editors are doing. Guys, you have to realize that whatever tools you're seeing on an individual basis, you may not want to buy into them. You may, and this is coming from somebody who spends a lot of money monthly on AI tools, you may not want to buy into them depending on what the tool is and what it's doing for you. What I mean by that is, if you are using a tool because it does great note taking, but your company uses Zoom or they use Teams. If it does great note taking, then you need to write down the aspects of that app that you like most, and then just push those forward to either Zoom or Teams or whoever your company is using, because whoever your company is using is who they're going to stick with. That's just the way that it is. I've been using Fireflies for a long time. I really like it. I like it way better than Otter. I would never go back to Otter because it's twice the price for half the features. There is a drawback to Fireflies with its AI feature that you have to pay additionally for it. I'm not into that. Don't really need it. And if you are like me, then you know how to work around it as well. So it's not really as useful as you would think. It's only useful in the sense of, let's say, wanting to, once again, cross-reference one conversation that you had with a client against another conversation that you had with a client. That's where it becomes, very useful. It's nice to have that AI helper to be able to do that. Well, Zoom does that now, and Teams is about to do that. So now all of a sudden, otter, fireflies, who else? So many different ones. I think I have them all in a list here somewhere. Um, that oh no, and it's on a different profile. Anyway, all those note taking apps that are out there, they're all really great. They're a lot of them. They're really amazing. If if you're a note taking app that is a third party to a current VoIP or current telecom based service like Zoom or like uh, Teams or Google Meet, then you're already out of the game. You cannot expect these giants to sleep on this stuff. They absolutely won't. Most of them came up with Google came up with all of these tools that are being used by everybody else. They developed them to begin with. They developed the models to begin with, right? So, yeah, my advice for people who are looking at independent tools is make sure that your larger overhead companies don't already have a feature that's similar to it. Even if they have a feature that's similar to it, they will definitely be folding that into their current set of things. So, um, let me see. Something happened here. Did it? Um, sorry, I just deleted something. Off my phone here. Um, uh-oh. No, that should be fine. Okay. Sorry, I'm just checking something on YouTube because it looked like the feed had cut out, but apparently it didn't. Just my timer got reset. All right, better safe than sorry. Okay, so back at it. Um, so you got YouTube Studio that's kind of stepping things up, and essentially, why did I bring up all the other stuff with the note takers and stuff? Because YouTube Studio is doing the same thing that a lot of other video editing apps are doing. So because and like again, why are they part of this bigger bigger plethora of players? Because they are a content hosting service, right? So a content hosting service is definitely going to want to have all the different AI tools that all the other third-party services have, because they are going to want people to spend more time on their platform using their tools than using their competitors' tools. So YouTube put out a new Studio series of features that allow you to, as you would think, upload your videos, to do auto captions, to do auto segmentation, to do auto everything that you would find through either video or any number of other video chopping softwares, my clips, or whatever other softwares you guys might have, use, and are already thinking of. That stuff's going to get baked into YouTube. Okay. I'm just going to kind of keep moving forward with the overarching stuff because the details are going to come in the end. All right, so Amazon kicking off the fact that Alexa is basically going to become your new AI assistant, and not just in the generic sense. It's going to be in the much, like, they are legit straight up shooting for the conversational version of this. So they want you, for lack of a better phrase, they want you to have a conversation with Alexa. They want you to be able to have a natural conversation with Alexa and to be able to just ask for things the way that you normally would. You'll be able to ask for much more in a much more relaxed conversational method to query Alexa, rather than just saying, Alexa, turn off the lights, Alexa, turn on the lights. You'll now be able to ask Alexa to play something based off of a mood, or something based off of the weather outside, or however you want to personalize your experience. So rather than now where you have to like know the album, know the song, all this other stuff, whatever the case might be. Or, I'm not sure, because I personally, I don't use Alexa for that kind of thing. But I'm sure that currently there might already be the functionality of like, hey Alexa, play some jazz, let's say. And maybe it starts playing jazz music, but you're still asking for something fairly specific. That's not something that Alexa would have to necessarily guess for, like just the fact that it took a guess at what jazz track to play. Not the same thing as being able to say, hey Alexa, it's kind of rainy outside, a bit gloomy, can you play something that fits this mood? That's different. That's more personalized. That's Alexa actually having to go in to look at your geolocation, to look at what the weather is, excuse me, to then go and maybe find music that either literally matches up with the description of what the weather is, or that figuratively matches up with what the description of the weather is. Either way, being able to wake up in the morning on a, I don't know, a rainy Tuesday morning or whatever it might be, and ask Alexa to play some music for you, and uh, having something like I don't know, Blue Monday start playing or something. Uh, that to me is pretty cool. Or maybe you're in a really great mood, or it's your birthday or something like that, right? Like, it's cool to me. It's very cool to me to be able to do that. To say, hey, Alexa, it's my birthday. Like, what are we doing today? Like, how are we going to celebrate? And then to have Alexa be like, hey, here's some suggestions on what you should do. Here's what I think. Maybe it's a couple years in. So, hey, remember we did this last year. We did this the year before. This is what you decided to do. And while you're getting ready, let me play this jam for you. This is one you've been playing constantly all year. You're probably going to want to hear it anyway. Like, that kind of like a conversational interaction is where you're really going to start to see I don't want to say usefulness, but like, you'll really start to see how well trained these models are. There's such a misconception in terms of like how well trained they are, and I think that pretty soon people are going to get a really almost sort of scary personal view into just how far some of this stuff is going. So that's Alexa. It's going to be much more personalized. Oh yeah, tiny piece of news here that Amazon dropped $4 billion on Anthropic for Claude. So, remember last week when I said that Databricks just seeded $500 million, right? And they're as far along as they are, and they're like I don't want to talk out of my butt here, but I want to say that they're somewhere in the ballpark of the $30 billion valuation range, right? And they just secured 500 million, right? On top of that, Anthropic, who's not even looking for, you guys have to understand, these people aren't even looking for money. They're not even asking anyone. They're not trying to advertise. They're not trying to go out there and say, hey, if you give us more money, we could do these crazy good things. Nothing like that. It's not even close. And yet at the same time, you've got all these companies that are basically just throwing money at them. Like they just want it to happen. They want the tech to come out. They want to be able to use it in some way. Clearly, Amazon sees a really great use, and I'm assuming that that's where they're going with Alexa, right? So they want Alexa to be more conversational, and they can't really get a hold of Pi, so they might as well get a hold of Claude. And since Claude is fairly natural in terms of conversation, if you've worked with Claude, it's a very nice conversational / writing bot. It's really nice to talk to. It's really nice to ask opinion to. It's definitely nice for summarization. For writing summarization, I'm still lean Claude because it's just better. It's like it's better trained. Look, I love GPT to no end, and yes, I can get I have it set to write certain things specifically the way that I want to, right? But when I'm working on my own stuff, let's say, which is a little weird. It is kind of odd to say that when I'm working on my own stuff. When I'm working on commercialized stuff, I use GPT. When I'm working on personalized stuff, I use Claude. That's the best way I can explain that. Commercialized stuff I define as things that fit into my personal instructions, that fit into my bio preferences and output, and fit into personas that I feed to GPT, and gives me specific output based on those personas and instructions. Whereas with Claude, I'm having a much more natural conversation, discussion / exploration. There's not the inputs, there's not the personas, there's not the prompting, there's not any of the pre-work that has to go into it. It's a very more fluid conversation. It's a much more, that's the best way I can put it. It's just a conversational method of getting things done. And I like it. And it works really well. So I think if that is what Amazon is envisioning is putting the tech and the hardware behind Claude into Alexa, which I'm not entirely sure why you would do that. I don't know. I don't know what these guys are doing behind closed doors. I only know what they're willing to put into papers. And then I just I sort of take my best educated guess from what they're doing publicly. So the way that I see it is like, yeah, why would you go back and redesign Alexa? I don't know. Maybe that team is hard fast on it. Who knows? It might be the case where they can just pick up some things that Anthropic are doing and sort of weave it into what they had been thinking and roll all of that out as one big Alexa update. It's possible. We'll see. We'll see what they do with that. But yeah, just wanted to throw that out there too. That yeah, no big deal, right? $4 billion on the table. We'll see what happens. Okay, so Intel's AI talk. Intel decided that, hey, what would be really cool is if we could do everything that 11 Labs is doing, only better. So they did. They came out with a new chipset for their laptop. It's an AI powered. I shouldn't say AI powered chipset. I don't want to say that. That's the wrong way of doing it. They came out with a. Well, basically, yeah. I mean, it is. It's like it's an AI chipset. That's the only way I can explain it. Microsoft has their own with Athena. Intel, I didn't catch the name for this one. I'm sure I'm going to get beat over the head for that. But they demoed how their new, again, like everybody's doing this with laptops. And this is kind of blowing me away. It's a little bit of what I thought would happen earlier in the year. I don't think earlier in the year. I was talking about the possibility because somebody had also been able to develop a laptop. Sorry, just moving some stuff around here. Laptop version of what was it? Llama 2, I think, maybe. And they were able to fit Llama 2 on a laptop and get it to run. It wasn't like, I don't know, it wasn't running like the best that you could possibly have it. And I think it was only like the 3 billion parameter model. So it wasn't that great. And of course, you had to have it hooked up to the internet. So there was that as well, right? So initially, like, this wasn't the coolest thing, but it was more like, okay, well, we developed a large language model that you could run off laptops. So that's pretty cool. Well, now most of these larger chipset companies, or ones that have their hands on chipsets, are basically trying to bake a lot of the processing ability. Again, I don't know a lot about the technical stuff here, so I will look for someone, to be honest with you, to bring on and to be able to go back and forth with them, just ask them some questions about this stuff, so that to both educate myself and educate you guys. So I'm going to look forward to doing that in the coming weeks, because I actually want to sort of get that one nailed down. At any rate, Intel comes up with this chip, basically showing a demo of how they're able to take a song and have it take lyrics and have that get generated into a song that's done in the style of Taylor Swift. And not only that, but it actually was able to produce the song right in the same styling, the exact same way. Not that no one could tell the difference, but you would have thought per se that Taylor Swift had written the song. Obviously sounded like her as well. But what went a step further was the fact that you could then hold a conversation with that Taylor Swift bot that you use to create the song, and ask them about the song, ask them about their influences, ask them about all the like intricacies that you would ask of any sort of NPC, right? That could perform some type of function of that manner. I don't know. That's sort of the way that I look at it, I guess. Um, I think it's pretty cool. I think it's very cool. It was a pretty cool demo to check out. Um, the crux of it and what you should take away from it, if anything, is that rather than having to be super dependent, because the large dependency currently is GPU power. And who owns all the GPU power? Not all of it, but the majority of it is NVIDIA, right? AMD is kind of like behind them with Radeon chipsets, and they're pretty good. They're not, it's not knocking it, but quite literally everybody is buying NVIDIA chipsets. Like if you're doing something awesome and you're trying to push this technology forward, you're using NVIDIA chipsets because that's just they are working on it every day, every night. Like that's all they do. That's their bread and butter. So what these other companies are trying to do is to work around that problem because you can only ship so many of these things. They can only make so many on top of it. So Intel is trying to work it from a CPU standpoint, and they're getting pretty close. They're getting really close. So it's getting close. It's starting to go back to if you know anything about like how computers, like just the era of computers and how everything has gone, it's starting to sort of come back to what it was in the beginning. In the very beginning, it was CPU only. It's just CPU power. Then it was CPU combined with memory, and those two things carried for a long time. And then video gaming started. And initially, it was very, very, very weak. And the video cards were super tiny, thin, little, like nothing video cards. I couldn't even believe that you could call some of that stuff video cards. And by the time I was in college was when I was seeing the first series of video cards that actually had fans on them because they were so high end that they needed to have their own cooling features and stuff. And of course, now we're at where we are today, where you have like a singular GPU taking up, a good, I don't know, eighth of your internal space on your PC just to get the GPU in there, right? So things have scaled up pretty massively, but I do treasure the fact that it has gone from CPU to memory to GPU, and then it kind of came back down to memory and came back down to CPU for a long time. There was a huge CPU war forever. GPU kind of just went by the wayside because the processing power, again, even in the games themselves, things shifted back and forth between like, okay, well, we need more graphics processing ability here, but then it sort of reached a plateau where like, okay, that was all that's necessary, but now we need to increase performance for like the actual characters, and performance for the actual environment, performance for the actual game itself, and the physics for the game itself. Well, all of that is controlled by CPU power. It's calculation. None of that is graphics rendering processing aspects of it. There are some rendering aspects of it when it comes to like the whatever rendered movement of the character, but the locomotive movement of that is all internally controlled through calculation. So it's not, and a lot of it is baked into sprites. So it's predetermined motion based on the application of a button. But again, processing power to be able to handle the commands and to be able to handle all the different things that are going on with the controller at the same time in order to give you that more tight-fitting control, right? A lot of people will tell you that when they play games on PC that exist on platform, that the PC version of it is better, more responsive, like just all around is slightly better than the platform version because, or the console version, I'm sorry, because of the fact that the console version is more restricted. It's hardware restricted. It's sort of software restricted in a sense. Like it can run the game itself, but it can't run it with higher parameter settings than whatever you can put into it. So 9 out of 10 times, PC games have much higher performance settings than what you're able to do on a console game. So there's that aspect of it as well. Point being that now it seems as though, and I really hope this is the case, it seems as though we've sort of reached a slight plateau with the necessity for GPU only, and we've started to supplement it a little bit with CPU as well. So that, and why I say this is a good thing is because there's tons of universities, there's tons of other outlets that want to study this stuff and pull it apart and be able to figure out what's going on underneath the hood before we go too far forward. And they can't do it if the costs are through the roof and they can't even afford to build the models themselves. So there is something to be said about being able to make this stuff affordably accessible to other avenues, to other people, other avenues, other departments, other outlets in order to, again, have them be able to study it, have them be able to give us their opinions on it, and who knows what additional things that we could unlock if more professional hands are able to work on these things. Excuse me. I definitely do not condone and think that it's a good idea at this point. I don't think that it's a good idea to continue to open source a lot of this stuff. Didn't think I would even like. I didn't think I would say that. Uh, I'm just seeing what's going on outside of the advancements. I'm seeing what's going on and what the stuff's getting used for, and it's okay. Like it's all right if we stop the open source thing for a little bit, just for a little bit, until we get a better handle on who's using this stuff and how we're tracking people who are using this stuff. Really need to start getting a tighter lid on that jar. Let's move forward. This was very cool. One of the oldest torrent sites out there, torrent services. If you even know what a torrent service is, congrats, hats off to you. If you know what LimeWire is, my hat is all the way off to you, because that is some old school stuff. It's not quite as old school as Napster, but if you know about Napster, you should know about LimeWire. And at any rate, LimeWire has decided to put some money behind its own large language model, which I'm not really sure what I shouldn't say its own large language model. I'm not really sure what the point of this one is. Maybe they're just late to the game and they're willing to put money behind an underdog to see what happens. But basically, LimeWire is funding Blue Willow, which, if you don't know about Blue Willow, they are the competitor, not the number one competitor, there's a bunch, but they are another competitor to Midjourney. Again, Midjourney is still holding the reigning champion title, but we'll get into that a little bit more as well. Just to let you know that LimeWire is now funding Blue Willow. LeiaPix, which is a new tool that is not new, newish, and has added some features. LeiaPix is a tool that allows you to take your 2D generated images and give them some depth, give them a little bit of 3D animated depth, give them a little bit of motion depth. Nothing crazy, and it's like a total animation time of maybe 4 to 5 seconds, but it is very cool. If you've seen some LeiaPix stuff, it's pretty nifty. Zuckerberg sucks. Oh man, the amount of news coming out of Zuck's corner right now is just insane. So we'll start off very quickly with the fact that but most effectively, and probably the top piece of news to come out of this section, Zuck's and his wife have started pouring his partner have started pouring a crazy amount of money into a LLM that's solely dedicated to disease research. And he has said, and I quote, that they are looking to lead they are looking to lead groundbreaking new discoveries that could help cure, prevent, and manage all diseases by the end of the century. Now, let me tell you, the advancements that have been made so far, groundbreaking. The advancements that have been made in cancer detection, groundbreaking. I don't think it will take until the end of the century. I think they're way off on that. I think that it could easily be within a decade. I really do. I really do think it could be within a decade. I don't know that that's a good thing. Really all diseases within a decade? Yes. Yes. Why not? Why not? What is the limitation? The limitation is computation. That's it. It's no longer a matter of I hate to say it, guys. It's no longer a matter of like all medical knowledge like a bunch of medical experts in some sort of Manhattan Project scenario where they're trying to work feverishly on disease cures all constantly. No, not anymore. Not anymore like WHO, not anymore like CDC, right? For studying and treating and all that kind of stuff. They'll be using this model instead. More power to them. There aren't hundreds of thousands of people to work for the CDC and the WHO. There aren't. There aren't enough people who have been through STEM programs to be able to get into those fields and help out. But now they have the tools to do that. Now they have the tools and the forehand knowledge. I got to tell you, it's not, again, if you've used this stuff, you will know almost firsthand. I've done demos to prove that it's not about replacing someone else. If you know how to do something already and you use this tool to help you, you will do that thing way better than anybody who would have even thought to do it before. I am still seeing people on LinkedIn saying, "Oh, I don't want to use AI. I'm never going to use AI. I'm never going to touch AI." First of all, if you've touched anything electronic since 2010, you have used AI. So there's no effing way you can sit there and say, "I've never used AI. I'm not going to." Blah 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 blah. If you push the button on an elevator, that's technically AI. There's an artificial intelligence within that circuit board that says, "Oh, button 12 goes to 12th floor, so change this gear, do this thing, change this pulley, whatever, blah, blah, blah. Let's go to the 12th floor. Oh, and by the way, I'll close the doors for you automatically and open them automatically for you." That's artificial intelligence. That's intelligence that exists that's not in an organic brain. Okay? Artificial, non-organic intelligence. Right? So think about that word before you say it. Before you say that, "Oh, I don't use AI, I don't use any of that stuff," just think about what it applies to first. I think a lot of people mean that they just don't want to use GPT or they don't want to use generative AI, which generative AI is a very different thing, and that's pretty much what's going on now. Is that's the new uh, input, that's the new keyboard, is generative AI. So what else is going on? Well, I think probably, I don't know. Meta is doing like, okay, so since I'm at the meta portion of things, let me see. Okay, I'll get to the Ray-Ban thing. Yes. Okay. So this pretty much hits the end. Perfect, because we're almost that time anyway. So what I wanted to say is that like Meta is changing the game very much so. It's kind of cool because you like sometimes you think it's OpenAI, it's going to do it. Sometimes you think it's Google, it's going to do it. Sometimes you think it's going to be like somebody else, and now all of a sudden Meta. So Meta is changing the game. How they are throwing image generation into everything. It's going to be in Instagram. It's going to be in Messenger. It's going to be in Facebook. It's going to be in like every social platform that they have their hands on. I'm very sure that this is also going to become part. I think Snapchat already has one, right? That one mistakenly posted its own like account or made its own post or something like that. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Snapchat's already got theirs. I'm sure TikTok's going to have theirs very soon. YouTube already has one. Bing, by the way, also has an app on Android that you can download, so you can do Bing Chat on Android. Point I'm getting at is what I was trying to avoid talking about this whole time. The game is changed. We are going into version 2.0, and I hope that you had fun in version 1, and I hope that you learned a lot in version 1, because version 2 is going to be twice as fast as version 1, and we're probably not going to see new tools so much as the new application and features that come along with using those tools. So I think where version 1 was a matter of get to know you, I think version 2 is going to be much more a case of get to know what I can do. So this, I think, what we're going to see in this next year, 24, is going to be a lot more exploration into the creativity behind using these tools. I think I've been talking about this all year. I think I've been talking about the fact that you need to learn how to be more creative. You need to learn how to think more critically. You need to now move beyond the physical of your job. Leave it behind. The processing aspect of your job, throw it away, and then take some time and figure out what is the mental aspect of your job. What is it that you apply yourself towards and you think about the most while you're doing your work? Because that's what's going to be most important now. It's no longer the, "Oh, well, I have to bang out this many reports and I got to do this thing, I got to write this thing, I got to do this write up." Nope. Now it's about like, how are you going to execute that? For what purpose? Why? What's it going to tie into? Now that you don't have to spend as much time doing the legwork, what else can be done with the result? So, all that to say, the game has changed. Everybody will have a generative art program by December. Everybody. And all of them will be on an equally amazing level. That's what I was getting at, is that the time for Midjourney being at the top of the list may very well be at an end, which is scary for me to say because I've been using Midjourney for a year and a half now, and I'm floored by the fact that this thing could get replaced so easily, so quickly. To be honest with you, I think that is a very small amount of time for a new sort of groundbreaking software. And why do I say this? Because the team that works on Midjourney is very small. I'm sure it's larger now, but it started out very, very small. So kudos to them on having gotten as far as they did with the size of the team that they did, with no additional funding, with no public funding, with no one publicly supporting them. Try to understand that the reason so many people are behind Midjourney is because they are a true underdog. No one owns them, no one is funding them, except for the people who are using the platform, who are in the millions, by the way. Like I want to say, let me just take a quick look. I want to say the last time I looked at their platform through Discord, it had something like at least 2 million users. It's got to be much, much higher than that by now. Just jumping on Discord mobile here. Member support. Just take a look at the server size. Wow, so it's been a little bit. 15.6 million. 15.6 million users of Midjourney. Just the ones that are currently using it now live online now. 1.55 million. 1,550,000 people are currently live right now generating images on Midjourney out of 15.5 million accounts. Okay, so needless to say, it's the little engine that did. It upset the entire market. Look, Adobe has been chasing them since the beginning of the year. Everybody has been chasing them since the beginning of the year, including OpenAI. DALL-E 3 was like, it's a nice little drop. I don't know what the gang at Midjourney has been working on for version 6. I do know that at their last sort of fireside talk that they hold, they typically have one like every week. So it's really good to get into their Discord and to sort of get an update on what's going to be coming out soon, what they're thinking about, what they're working on. And I have to say, the only thing that they're waiting on is some final touches and some fine tuning on version 6. And they're getting ready to drop version 6. They wanted to do a 5.5, but they didn't want to cheat their users. And they didn't want to release like some half features. They wanted to do something like a really nice full-blown release. So I'm really looking forward to version 6 to see what that's going to be by comparison to the others. The question for me now is, with image generators, what is going to become the differentiator? What's the moat going to look like? Is it going to be a difference of, I don't know, is it going to be a difference of style? Is it going to be a difference of training? I think what's going to become more prevalent now is training the image generator, to create more succinct images that look very similar. It is very easy to do if you know how to do it, but to learn how to do it is a little bit complicated, and to learn how to do it might take you a lot of time and a lot of generations, which could cost you some money. So all of that's getting boiled down. All of this stuff is becoming much easier. And as I mentioned earlier, Windows 11 is going to have all these have so many AI features baked into it. It's going to be ridiculous. You have to be kidding yourself if you don't think that Apple's going to be doing the same thing. They definitely will be. Microsoft is going to have all of these features baked into the Surface, so even their hardware is going to be AI driven. Bing, by the way, Meta teamed up with Ray-Ban, so now they have the first on market. Unless OpenAI has something on shelves that they're just waiting to announce, Meta has the first official AI hardware. They teamed up with Ray-Ban. If you've been following, I mentioned before that there was a researcher from MIT who was able to take. now I'm going all over the place a little bit, but just stay with me. Elon Musk, Neuralink, have to implant in your head. Hopefully connects to the internet. Maybe has that kind of ability. Kid from MIT research managed to make a external version of Neuralink that doesn't have to go into your head, right? Obviously, that's the one that we all want, is the non-invasive version of it. The not even non-invasive, or I should say, yes, non-invasive. We don't even want the minimally invasive version one. We want the don't have to cut in my head version. So this guy came up with it. He was even on, I wish I could remember his name, but he was on CBS or 60 Minutes, something like that, showing off this device. It was amazing. It was really amazing. Even though it had a little bit of lag to it, he was able to be asked a question by the interviewer and have the answer within a few seconds to be able to get back to the interview. Right? Well, Meta teamed up with Ray-Ban and they just did it legit. So now there's a pair of Ray-Bans that you can get that have multimedia cameras and photography lenses built in, so you can capture scenes and all that kind of stuff. It has music that goes straight through the uh, the gosh, goes straight through the side to the back of your ear, and through that is the same method that the guy from MIT used in order to figure out, oh, okay, well, if I just pinpoint the sound to this aspect on the back of your ear, then you might as well be wearing a headphone. It's the same, gives the same effect. So that's what they've done, and so now you can actually query Llama 2 through a pair of Ray-Bans, and you can have it identify objects you're looking at. You can be walking somewhere and be lost and ask how to get back to some place. And because it can use visuals, it can detect where you are, look for street signs, and then show you how to get back to where you're going. Not through, we're not there yet. We're getting close. We're getting so close. They don't have the heads-up AR display thing. That'd be amazing, right? I wouldn't even have waited. I would have started this out with that announcement if that were the case. But it's going to get there. Don't worry. It's another year tops, and we'll have that technology. Easy heads-up display, guaranteed. Right from my lips to the street itself, I can almost guarantee you that by this time next year we will have AR heads-up display glasses that are fully functional and commercial. You'll be able to order them and buy them on Amazon. I can almost guarantee it. If not, it'll be a greater letdown than the self-tying shoes from Back to the Future. Okay, so I really need to leave it there. I want to spend more time with my family. Just wanted to get all of that out there as best I could, and really let you guys know that we really are. We're coming up on the second half of this thing. We're coming up on the back nine of this first push. I think we've reached the tail end. Well, okay. Well, I'll give it till year end, I suppose. But I know that beginning of next year is going to be a whole new wave. These things they're supposed to happen, right? Like we were following Moore's law because we were locked into physical development of things like superconductors, semiconductors, that kind of stuff, transistors, right? Moore's law is governed by the fact that every 2 years, essentially it takes 2 years in order to figure out how to reduce a transistor in half, which smaller the transistors are, the smaller the technology can get, the more powerful the technology can get because you can put so much more into a smaller amount of space. So we were being limited by that. We're no longer limited by that because now we're working on a software level, so it's infinite. It's however fast we can process. That's the only limitation, how much energy that we can put through this thing without blowing it up, right? Getting to the point where having said that, how much power we could put through this thing, Microsoft is about to develop its own nuclear power plant just so that it can power its large language models. So I'm assuming that Google's going to be doing this. It's going to be doing the same thing next, very soon. The U.S. is about to go from. I'm telling you guys, I'm just going to say it outright. The nerds are about to start running things. The nerds are very seriously about to start running things. I am watching these companies do things that private corporations that would have loved to do these things couldn't have done if they wanted to. I'm watching Microsoft throw down money to create a nuclear power plant for itself so that it can advance its own technology. Absolutely unbridled by government. I don't see anybody from the US government stepping in and saying, hey man, you should probably not do that, right? Because what is that going to do for them? It's going to it's going to put them so far ahead of everyone else. because they will have their own power source that they don't have to rely on anyone else for. And it's going to be an insanely powerful source, not just like coal on a grid, right? So, really, I really don't know what to make of this stuff. On the one hand, you've got the EU and you've got the government swearing and saying, we're going to work on regulation. We're going to try to regulate the stuff as best we can. We're going to try to, we need to be really, really cautious. And on the other hand, you have all these companies, like, Microsoft included, that are just like, hey, we're making more advancements. So why don't you let us know when you got the regulation that you've got? How is that going to work? How is it going to work if you've already, how do you create a law to prevent something? You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't make sense to me. This isn't like robbing a bank where you could say like, oh, that guy robbed a bank. We should make a law against robbing banks so that people don't do that in the future. You can't do that with this kind of tech. This kind of tech can get out there and do so much damage so quickly. It'd make your head spin. And to sit there and assume that, oh, well, after it's already done and been released, we can yank it back and we can put regulation in place. Okay, well, here's how I want you guys to think about this. An AI system, I'm not saying an AI system, a super intelligent AI system or an artificial general intelligence, okay, electronically can move every bit as fast, if not faster, than a computer virus. So I want you to think about how many systems get attacked by viruses on an annual basis. I want you to think about how quickly those systems get taken down. I want you to think about the last time you had, even though most of us have been thankful to not have had this happen anytime recently, I want you to think about the last time that you had a computer virus, how easy it was to deal with, right? How difficult it was, what it did to your system before you even realized it, how long it was on your system before you realized it. Think back to those days of malware, spyware, and all that kind of stuff, and the fact that I don't know how many of us would install, McAfee or any one of the Norton or any one of the safeguards and watch as they caught like hundreds of attempts per day. Okay? Excuse me. I want you to think about that. Think about those speed specifically, and then try to wrestle with the idea that if one of these systems, super intelligent systems, were to make it out there into the internet, that we'd somehow be able to wrangle it up and port that, yank it back in, and prevent other people from doing the same. That's where I'm going to leave you. I know it's not the brightest point on the surface of the sun, but it's a good one. It's an interesting one. It'll make you think, and that's what I like to do more than anything else. I want to get you guys to think about this stuff, to really look at it from a different perspective outside of just, hey, it's really cool and I can do these really cool things. But I'll be doing some really cool stuff and have some really cool stuff lined up for you next week. So until then, thank you guys. Thank you for being here. Thank you for watching. And until next time, thanks for coming by to GPT with me.